We're staying in San Diego for the weekend, so we're gonna go out and do some bourbon hunting.
We're in San Diego for a weekend trip. We're just hanging out, but we decided that we wanted to go bourbon hunting. So like we said in the intro, we'll be hitting, I don't know, a couple stores. So we have a couple in mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just gonna go and wing it and kind of see what we get lucky with.
Yeah, I did a little bit of Googling, found maybe a couple spots that have good store picks, but otherwise we're just kind of checking it out.
Yeah, having a good time, vacation hunting.
Yes.
All right, see you guys later. All right, we're here at a Asian grocery store, actually, here in San Diego.
Yeah, it's called Sin Lee Wholesale Food. It's like a wholesale Asian grocery store, but I've heard that they have a pretty good whiskey selection and occasionally really good store picks. So.
Let's go check it out. We didn't quite know what to expect, but there ended up being a pretty large liquor section right when we walked in. We headed to the back shelf first and already saw a ton of Sagamore bottles. That was just really cool to see. They had the brewer select for even cheaper than we got it in our last bourbon hunting video at $65. But they also had the rye finished in tequila barrels for $65. A Sagamore single barrel pick for $60. And hiding behind those, we found a gem. A batch 1 of their bottled in bond at 4 years old. We have their 5-year batch 2 bottled in bond, but a goal of ours is to get the 6-year batch 3, and so on and so forth, because we love their own distillate.
This whole back shelf area really seemed to be more of their like odds and ends, dusty whiskey, things that have been here for quite a while and they just have a few bottles of. So looking at the top, we see some Woodinvilles, a lot of just, like we said, just one-off bottles. We see the Justice, Senator, and the Representative here. We've heard a lot of good things. This is supposed to be really good MGP whiskey right there. And at the bottom, I pull out this Roulette Rye just because a crazy bottle shape and really weird label. I've never heard of it before. And looking in the back, it is MGP whiskey and happens to be from Proof and Wood, which also make the Senator and Justice as we just showed. Looking at the bottom here, there's a ton of dusty whiskey. And like I said, just complete one-offs, just a single Nashville Barrel Company bottle, a single Old Elk just hanging out by themselves. Everything here is at great prices too. We see some old James E. Pepper bottles, not the new Decanter series. That's a really old label. Some Minor Case, some Jeffersons, probably the largest collection of Pinhook we've ever seen. And then up top, some other things that we're not as interested in. We do spot the Westward bottles. We always love pointing out that our favorite single malt. Moving over to the more organized regular release section, I spot a High West Rendezvous Rye bottle. I've been told to look for any release before 17J because that's where all their older distillate was. Unfortunately, this bottle was right after the cutoff at 17L. And just one thing we haven't mentioned yet is we found out after the fact that all these prices actually include tax. They are out the door prices, so everything is even cheaper than we expected. I spot a couple of the Old Scout labels. We really like looking at the older labels there because that's a good way to get some older MGP that isn't really released anymore. They also have a pretty good selection of Bardstown. Right there is a Discovery number 7, so that's almost a dusty. And right next to it, we see a Dad's Hat 100 proof rye whiskey, West Coast exclusive, for $70.
A little further down, we see the barrel Amberana finish. There's also just tons of different barrel products. There were a lot of different bourbons, and we saw a ton of the different like New Year's. So we saw a 2020 that Jonathan points out here, but we also see a little later the 2019. We also see a 2023, and then just a ton of other products. All these barrel products were priced at $65, so not too crazy at all.
We spot a Frey Ranch bourbon, both the normal release and the uncut right there. And just overall, they do a really good job at having a wide range of distilleries and having a good amount of offerings from each distillery. At the bottom, I see a Proof and Wood Polish whiskey. This is just something I've never heard of. Sorry, we pull out quite a few Proof and Wood releases at this store, but they just keep catching me off guard with the label and what they have inside. So Never heard anything about this, but let us know if you've ever tried some Polish whiskey before. As we go back up top, we see quite a few Woodinville releases, including some of their regular and cask strengths, a bunch of different wilderness trails, rye, bourbon, everything like that. And at the bottom, we see a Bull Run American whiskey 14 year from MGP, but this is finished in Oregon Pinot Noir barrels. So that's what Bull Run does to kind of make it a little bit different. Really interesting release there. Next up, I see a Bespoken Spirits bottle, but it says that it's flavored and colored with new charred oak, so I'm not really sure what that means.
Although Sin Lee had a ton of older dusty bottles, they also had newer releases like Redwood Empire's Foggy Burl and the cask strength Pipe Dream.
They have a good variety of old elks here, including, we're pretty sure those ones without the labels are older releases. Very reasonable prices there. And below, we see a Yellowstone limited release 2023 for only $135. I immediately spot the Redwood Empire Grizzly Beast, and it's missing a batch number on the front. Look in the back, this is a batch 1, which is really cool for us. We only have a batch 2 for $85. That's really intriguing. I think it's going to come home with us. All right, I think we'll get a batch 1 of Redwood Empire Grizzly Beast and a batch 1 of Sagamore Bourbon Bond.
Let's do it. We thought we knew exactly what we were coming home with, but on the way out, we saw a 7-year Old Scout for only $40 that we just couldn't pass up. All right, we just got out of Sin Lee.
It was awesome in there. Everything was super cheap. They had a ton of great store picks and just a lot of really old bottles. We got a Sagamore Balled Bond Batch 1, a Redwood Empire Grizzly Beast Batch 1, and an Old Scout 7-year pick for only $40. So
yeah,
we're really happy.
Really good finds.
We'll catch you in the next one. All right, we're out here at Del Mesa Liquor, our second stop of the day, and let's see what we find.
Let's do it. We were really excited to go to this store and had heard great things about their store picks, so that was our first stop. Here you see the Good Times cigar blend, so that was something we could have picked up. We also see one of our favorite bottles. We've put this in many lists, but a TKO single barrel pick. Super excited to see this on the shelf. It was $130, so that is definitely for sure coming home with us. You also see a lot of those Traverse City picks and also a Russell's Reserve pick for $80. This is a Camp Nelson bottle, which is something we'd never tried before, so definitely thought about that one while we were wandering the store. We'll see if we pick it up on the way out. They also have these Nulu picks. Something interesting is this VDN barrel finished one, but we didn't end up going home with those.
Immediately we find a Jack Daniel's single barrel proof rye for $70. It was really hard to find these bottles at first, but now we find it at basically every liquor store. And right next to it, they had a little memorabilia style Jack Daniel's No. 7. It's just normal Jack, but in a nice old school label. Below it, we have a couple of Dad's Hat bottles that I've never seen before. One is finished in vermouth barrels, and the other is finished in port wine barrels. Definitely have to try that at some point. And below, we see Pikesville. Always like to point that out. Great 110 proof rye. And then that Blue Run single barrel Seattle Downpour for $150 we've seen at a couple shops. They also have the whole Whistle Pig line right here, from the 10-year all the way up to the 15. Below, we have a couple bottles from Peerless. The Double Oaked Bourbon for $90 is a great grab, and those are becoming way more available. We also see a couple bottles from Traverse City there. They're in Michigan, but do a lot of things with MGP whiskey. And then right next to it, we have something called Idle Hands, 5-year whiskey. We're pretty sure this is just another bottling from Proof and Wood, so basically the same thing as those Senator and other releases. Just, again, MGP whiskey at a decent price. Next to it, we have a few different Wild Turkey releases. I've heard a lot of good things about those Kentucky Spirit single barrels. And then up top, we just look at all the whiskey they have crammed in there. Always love pointing out Redwood Empire over there. Got some Basil Hayden's hiding in. Just a ton of options. Nulu Black Label, that's a new offering. And then basically every Bardstown that you can find. We have their new Origin Rye, an Old Discovery. This is actually a No. 7, so pretty dusty at this point. And just so many options to go through.
It's pretty funny, we haven't really actually picked up the Pipe Dream yet. even after talking about it in our Only 5 video. You also see the New England Barrel Company stuff back here. I think I point out a bottle as well. A couple bottles back there. We saw a lot in San Diego. And what we haven't mentioned yet is that the prices here are really reasonable. I know you can't really see them on these little orange labels, but pretty good prices. We just picked up one of those Rygers bottles, and then this is another Rygers, but we don't see that a lot in California, so very interesting find. Here's that malted rye from New Riff that we've been seeing. We have been contemplating picking it up. It usually goes for $60 to $70. Obviously, have to point out the barrel seagrass. That's just a Terran thing to do. We just put down that Southern Collective bottle. And down below, we see some Trail's End and a couple old Belle Meade labels in the back.
They have quite a few 2XO offerings. They have the cheaper American Oak version, along with the Innkeepers and the Tribute Blend. Those are about $100 each. There are a few Houghton Young bottles at 12 and 16-year age statements, which is kind of crazy, but I believe that's MGP light whiskey. In the little case, we do see quite a few old Carter bottles. Those are always really tempting for us, but we just haven't paid that $200 to $300 entry fee yet. And then up top, we have the Green River Rye, which is a brand new budget rye that we've seen a lot of great reviews about. Definitely contemplating that one. Below, we also see some 4-gate bottles, very similar to the old Carters. We want to get one someday, but it's too expensive. And that Smoke Eye Hill Barrel Proof has been compared to a Stag and George T. Stag. Not sure if it lives up to the hype though. We also see a James E. Pepper decanter bottle, another new release that people are starting to love. $50, not a bad price. Also see Ben Holiday Soft Red Wheat. We have a normal of the Ride Bourbon version, but we're not big wheated bourbon fans, so we'll leave this on the floor. Onto the larger case, right away I see the Old Forester's Single Barrel Rye. That's something I really want to get someday, but I'm not willing to spend $150 on it. Up top, we see the Penelope Tokaji cask finish, along with a High West Midwinter Nights Dram Act 11. We also see an E.H. Taylor single barrel for $180, and the brand new Heaven Hill Grain to Glass series. Not too interested in those releases though.
This store just had so much whiskey. It was kind of crazy. It was overflowing everywhere. You can see some floor whiskey and probably some of the shots we got, but please let us know if you'd like us to come back and rummage through all of the different areas a little bit more. We'd love to come back.
All right, we just finished up at Del Mesa.
Yeah, we ended up picking up that TKO pick at the beginning for $130. At the last second, decided to get the Russell's Reserve single barrel pick. That's the first Camp Nelson single barrel pick that we've tried, so hopefully it's really good. They said they're just about to run out.
Yeah, looks good.
Really successful.
All right, we just got to Crest Liquor, and we're gonna go check it out and see what they got.
Yeah, let's find out.
Right when we walk in, we see a Found North on the shelf for $150. It ended up being batch 7, which we already have, but always love seeing those on the shelf for retail price. We also see a single barrel pick from Art of Spirits, which appears to be a new independent bottler in our area. They sound like they're from Colorado and do a lot of MGP juice. This particular pick was MGP's 21% rye bourbon mash bill, but $100 we're going to pass.
We don't see a lot of barrel rye picks in our area, so it's nice to see this bottle here, along with all of these other barrel offerings. It might surprise you, but we haven't had a lot of barrel outside of barrel seagrass, so let us know which one of these bottles we should pick up next time.
They have a few Doc Swinson's offerings that I've been interested in, specifically an Amberana finish and a Jamaican rum finish. I've heard pretty good things about both of these bourbons, but I think we have enough Amberana in the collection for now. Then I also spot this New England Barrel Company bottle, which I thought was just an MGP bottler, but on the back it actually says distilled in Kentucky. So we're going to put it down for now, but that could be a good find for somebody. They also have a few bottles from Matchbook Distilling for $72 and $120. First up is the Meta Modernity Bourbon. It's not cask strength, but it is from the Craft Distillery in New York. We've never tried any bourbon from New York before, so not quite going to pick it up today. It's just a bit high of a price tag, but let us know if that bottle is any good. And then right next to it is actually a single malt rye finished in sherry barrels. Again, not quite in our price range today, but really love the bottle and the wax.
We also saw a lot of dark arts here in San Diego, like this rye finished in Madeira wine and the cask strength bourbon. We also saw the Amberana at other stores. They also had this Frey Ranch bourbon pick, but it looked like it was selected for the whole SoCal region, so we'll wait on that one. And we also saw a toasted rye Nulu for $106.
They also have a bottle of Wathen's Kentucky bourbon, which we were under the impression was a Kentucky exclusive, so kind of fun to see it here. Definitely not available locally, but for $56, gonna put that one back. Now we take a look at their highlighted store picks up front. They have a Smoke Wagon bourbon pick with a kind of a fun tater sticker right there, and then a Rare Character KBT barrel. This is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. We just recently got into Rare Character with the TKO rye picks, but not sure if we're ready to dip our toes into any of their bourbon offerings yet. The yellow wax and the nice little picture up front was enticing, but for about $130, we're going to put that one back. And then we already went over the Art of Spirits pick. Up front, they have 5 different Nashville Barrel Company picks. Again, this is a brand that we haven't really gotten into yet. I know a lot of people really love their offerings. They have really good premium MGP barrels. I believe a lot of them are even toasted. But the cheapest pick here started at $100 and went up from there. So again, we're just going to leave this on the shelf. Really like this purple wax one. That was kind of fun. A 10-year-old bourbon pick from them. Wrapping it up, they have an assortment of High West picks, obviously the cask strength bourbon, and then the few different finishes, Chardonnay, Cabernet, rum, everything that we've seen at basically every other store. Additionally, we see some barrel picks again, Doc Swinson's, Town Branch, and a Smoke Wagon rye pick with the medallion.
All right, that one was kind of a bust, but we did get some Topo Chicos because it is so hot outside. And we're ready off to the next.
All right, we're out here at Chips Liquor. This is we just looked it up and it's nearby. We think they're owned by the same people as the Del Mesa Liquor that we went to before. So we'll see if they have any more cool store picks.
When we walked in, we noticed this is overall a pretty small store. So we went straight for the bourbon shelves and noticed a lot of the common displays, Legacy Distilleries, the Senator. We got this Black Butte whiskey, kind of a funny name, gotta point that out. Angel's Envy, Remus, Penelope, plenty of good MGP bottles right there, along with Bull Run from Oregon. At the bottom, we notice this Cleveland Underground whiskey that we've never seen before. Looking at it, we see it's distilled from Indiana, so definitely MGP liquid there, but again, we've never seen anything from Cleveland in California, so just kind of a fun find. This particular bottle is 115 proof bourbon that's finished in black cherry barrels, so that must be the part that they do in Cleveland. Overall, pretty interesting bottle, but not sure if it's worth the $65.
Originally, I pointed out this California Cowboy bottle because I just thought the label was kind of cute. It is, although it says California, it is distilled in Kentucky, so not really a pickup for us today, but we'll try something else later. Otherwise, they just have some standards, like this little baby Sazerac, which is kind of funny. Also, Jonathan always loves to point out the Frank August bottles because he thinks they're kind of pretty. They have the Barrel Seagrass Grey label. And up at the very top, they have some Stellum picks kind of hiding in that tequila section. And we always love pointing out bottles from the Central Coast, just like these Rod and Hammer premixed cocktail bottles, and this rye from Paso Robles distilled by Refined. Again, not a whole lot of whiskey we were interested in, so we may recommend their sister store, Del Mesa, shown earlier in the video.
All right, we just got done with chips. It was all right. Not a huge selection, and not a lot of store picks. So yeah, but right now we're just free balling. We're just going to pretty much any liquor store around town and just kind of seeing. We're kind of done with the liquor stores that we've heard of in San Diego. So
we'll see what we find. Yeah, it seems like the Del Mesa is definitely their main location. That's the one to visit if you're in the area.
Definitely.
All right, it's the next day. We decided we're going to try to hit at least one more store on the way home, and we're at Dick's Liquor in La Jolla.
Yep.
We see a lot of the regular distilleries right here, the good Michter's lineup, Buffalo Trace for $33, and quite a few of the good benchmarks for only $25. Always recommend that as a budget option. At the bottom, we see a Medley Brothers bottle that we've never come across before. It's 102 proof, a screw top, and it's actually the same distillery that makes that Watkins bottle we've seen at some of the other stores. We're going to pass on it for now, though.
We are really fortunate to have a ton of great liquor stores in California, so when we see unique labels from California distilleries, that always piques our interest.
Overall, their prices are a little bit higher on the readily available shelf bottles compared to your average big box store, but I'd say they have a lot more interesting and even dusty bottles here at Dick's Liquor than at a lot of the other stores we've seen even in this trip. Right here, I pull out a Knob Creek single barrel for about $65. Looking at the rest of their selection, we see another few barrel bottles, and then we pull down this McCarthy's pot distilled single malt whiskey from Oregon. It is Pinot Noir finished, and it's about $70. So again, we're not the biggest single malt fans. We're going to pass on that today, but always love seeing craft distilleries around here. As you can see, they just have a pretty wide selection of everything that you'd expect in the whiskey section. A lot of smoke wagons here, basically every one of their normal releases. And as we pan over, there is a really old Maker's Mark Private Select label, along with Eagle Rare for $100. I pull down this smoke wagon uncut, unfiltered, because you always want to check that date. If sometimes they can be from 2020 or before, and that's probably worth the pickup.
We saw another whiskey from good old Paso Robles on the Central Coast, but this was a much older bottle than you would see now, so it really caught my eye. I don't even think I was able to drink whiskey when they had these bottles. We also see a 4-year Old Scout rye for $60. Just overall, a lot of unique and craft whiskey that I had never seen before. And extremely dusty. A lot of good whiskey could be hiding under the dust, so very fun to take a look at everything they got.
We see some more of these Old Scout labels. These are more their standard releases. Behind it, I pull out a Slaughterhouse bottle. Out front, we just see some other things that we don't see very often. The Contradiction Rye, some Hirsch bottles. Below we see another California bottle, California Riptide. Always love seeing more of those distilleries. We spot some James E. Pepper, Pikesville Rye, Old Bardstown. Quite a few of these James E. Pepper 1776 bottles. I believe these bottles are now discontinued, but always fun to see. Really like that gold and green wax there. At the bottom, we see the old label of George Remus from MGP. We spot a couple of those Sierra Norte Mexican whiskey bottles. And below, I pull out a Dry Fly Bourbon 101. We love our single barrel pick that we have from them, and we're always looking to get more from them. But we're going to pass on the bourbon today. We can't walk into a liquor store without pulling out something from Redwood Empire. Unfortunately, this pipe dream was listed for $55, so quite a bit more than we're able to get it for regularly. And what you might not expect is all the way at the top, they have a ton more whiskey basically at the ceiling. And this is where all the good stuff is. Good stuff sometimes outside our price range, but always fun to look at. We have a Weller 12 bottle there for $300. And then moving over, we see Elmer T. Lee, Blood Oath Pack 6, some Blantons all the way at the top. And what really caught my eye are these Elijah Craig barrel proof bottles. Usually we're not too interested in them, but these releases are actually a B520 and an A118. And you just don't see those every day. They have them listed for $200. But I think we're going to talk to them, see if we can get that price down a little bit in some type of package deal. We never had an opportunity to buy these bottles, and today might be the day. Moving over, we also see some Stag bottles. In particular, they have Stag Batch 23C. Those are about $300. And moving over, we see a lot more just jewels at the top. We got Michter's 10-year rye for about $400. Some purple tops from Willett. Basically the whole E.H. Taylor line. Again, all of these bottles are really outside of our price range and what we're willing to pay, but always fun to see. We also spot Baker's 13. You know, that's Taryn's favorite bottle of all time. Blech. Up front, we have their real cabinet with a lot of special bottles. Redrick 25-year, the full BTAC lineup, several other releases from Orphan Barrel, Old Carters, everything that you expect to find in the glass case.
We just got finished at Dick's Liquor, and we want to give a huge shout out to our boy Nathan. He really hooked us up today, and yeah, it was an awesome store. We're glad we went.
Yeah, we ended up finding an Elijah Craig barrel proof B520 and A119.
Yeah.
And yeah, talked to Nathan for a while, got a really reasonable price for it, and super happy to be walking away with it.
Yes, very happy. All right, next stop. All right, we just made it to our last stop. Keg and Bottle, which is a chain, right?
Yes, this one's in La Jolla.
The first thing that caught our eye was the Stag Junior, but unfortunately for $700, that was not coming home with us today. The barrel picks are by Bourbon Pursuit, which is pretty cool because they now focus on their own Pursuit United brand. Looks like Keg and Bottle partners with a lot of whiskey YouTubers to distribute their single barrel picks. Obviously, a lot of this is done online, but looks like there's quite a few that end up in their retail locations. Hoping maybe one day we'll get to that level, but let's get back to hunting. We also see a Nulu Toasted for $105. Then we see a Willett 7-year rye pick. As expected, this is way out of our price range for $500. So far, as a certified clumsy person, this store is making me a little fearful to touch anything. We see some other Nulu picks, like the cigarette blend, not to be confused with the cigar blend, and a pick finished in sherry and apple brandy barrels. They also had a Jack Daniel's single barrel pick in a box for $130. An Elijah Craig 94 proof pick, a 1792 full proof pick, and some old elk picks with some really fun tater stickers. last but not least, we see a KRY rye pick from Rare Character for a pricey $300.
Moving away from the single barrel pick section, we see a 1792 bottled and bond that has been dropping a lot lately, so one of the generally harder releases to find from them. I also spot an Old Scout bottle that says is 13 years old on the front. Looking at the back, unfortunately this is not MGP, it's distilled in Tennessee, so very likely Dickel, and we're going to pass on it. Right next to it, we do see a Knob Creek 25th anniversary single barrel. They actually had quite a few of these bottles. Comes with a nice wooden box and everything. It is $250, but this does seem like a pretty special release, and honestly I was expecting it to be a bit pricier. So let me know if that's actually a good pickup or not. Behind us, we see quite a large wall of whiskey. At the top, I notice a James E. Pepper decanter bottle, along with a Dragon's Milk Origin whiskey bottle. This is actually from the New Holland distillery that mainly does beer, but they're out in Michigan. I've heard a lot of good things from the bourbon junkies about this bottle, and for $60, not a bad pickup. We'll probably wait to buy a single barrel release or one of their more limited toasted series or something like that, but really interested in this new distillery. I also spot quite a few Elijah Craig barrel proof bottles. This is a C922 release. I was hoping for a C923 because we were never able to pick up that bottle. And then as we look down, we see plenty of barrel releases as we've seen at most of the stores today. And I try to navigate my way around this big ladder that's of course right in the middle. And then we see a couple more Nulu releases. We see stuff from Traverse City, Dry Fly. Basically, if you can think of a distillery, they probably have a few bottles from them. They also have the Bond and Lillard release from Wild Turkey in that 375 bottle. Up top, we also see Knob Creek 12 and 15 year. And we always like pointing out fun labels like this First Light coffee whiskey. Not up our alley, but a really pretty label. Moving back over, we see quite a few releases from Orphan Barrel, including Forager's Keep for $500. Again, very pricey, but you just don't see these bottles around anymore, so if that's what you want, you gotta pay up for it. Moving up, we see a lot of those high ticket bottles, plenty of BTAC, Stag, Willet Purple Tops. We see an old Jim Beam single barrel. We got Four Roses limited edition. I pick up this Four Roses Al Young bottle. Ended up being several $1,000s, so that was probably a mistake even touching it, but we put it away safely.
We see a Midwinter Nights Dram Act 11, but honestly, the selection here is crazy. Definitely overwhelming and hard to see prices. Probably on purpose, and so people like us can't get their grubby fingers on high-ticket bottles, but still really fun to look at.
This is how far we have to strain our necks with this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's still tough.
Overall, this was a great store to end our trip, and there was just so much whiskey in all these nooks and crannies that it was just really fun to hunt. And if that wasn't enough whiskey for you, they also had some crazy stuff behind the counter too.
All right, we just got out of Keg and Bottle. It's an insane selection. There's just so much stuff. Everything is a little outside our price range,
yes.
though. It was kind of cool, though. They have a ton of store picks that collaborate with like big whiskey channels because they have they're a big chain. They have like a website they can ship through. So
yeah.
It's kind of cool to see all that throughout, but didn't end up walking away with anything.
Yeah, cool whiskey library, cool building. Yeah. I liked it a lot.
I think this is our last stop, so we'll catch you and go over what we got.
All right, it's the next day, so let's go over our haul from San Diego.
Yeah, first up,
at Del Mesa Liquor, we picked up a single barrel TKO from Rare Character. We love the pick that we got locally, and we were so excited to walk in the shop and see the pink wax. $130, we knew we were grabbing it instantly.
Yep.
And then we thought about it a little bit more, but the Russell's Reserve pick for $80 from them. It is a Camp Nelson. Thought about it a while, ended up grabbing it at the last second. We do have 2 Russell's single barrel picks already.
Yep.
But I've heard so many good things about the Camp Nelson barrels that they're just completely different profile than normal. $80, end up going for it.
Yeah. All right. Next store was Sin Lee. So I'm going to start with the Old Scout barrel pick. We got this because it was a great deal for a 7-year bourbon.
$40.
Yes, $40. And that includes tax.
Yes,
so
all these Sin Lee prices include tax.
So great. Then we got a Redwood Empire Grizzly Beast, but a batch 1. So this is definitely a, enthusiast. Like, we're huge fans of Redwood Empire. We definitely picked this up because we'd love to have a batch 1. I think that's so cool. Fun. Yeah, and California, love it. And then we also got a Sagamore Bottled in Bond for, this is the 4-year, so this is their batch 1 of that as well.
Yeah, so the Redwood Empire ended up being $85, $55 for the Sagamore, and then $40, like we said, for the Old Scout.
Yep.
Again, all including price. That Sin Lee place is just a crazy, awesome whiskey place that happens
hidden
to be
gem. Yeah.
Yeah, happens to be a wholesale Asian grocery store.
It was awesome.
Yeah, if you're in the area at all, that is the one store we recommend going to. You can find so many Dusties on the shelf.
Yes.
Great prices all around.
Amazing.
And then wrapping up, we went to Dick's Liquor in La Jolla area, and we ended up going with this pair of old Elijah Craig barrel proof bottles. So we ended up getting an A118, which I believe is the first release in this style bottle. Before that was like the pirate bottles for the barrel proof, and then a B520. So we wanted to pay about $150 for each bottle. They had them listed for $200 for each bottle. We talked to our boy Nathan behind the counter for a little while. We ended up coming to a deal somewhere in the middle. Really happy. He was awesome.
Yeah, huge shout out to Nathan. He was awesome. Yeah. We love talking to him about whiskey. It was great. It
was a really good time. Really cool store there. And yeah, we are not generally the biggest Elijah Craig fans, but the one thing that we're always willing to spend up on is bottles that came out before we got into whiskey. We never had a chance to get any of these barrel proof bottles. We've heard that they're legendary, everything 2020 and before. We're so glad to have 2 of them. The 2018 barrel proof, I never thought that we'd ever see one on a shelf. That's just absolutely crazy.
And they had tons of stuff like this. Like, there was tons of different, dusty, super old bottles. And it was just really fun to even just look at all the selection that they had. So I think that kind of wraps up our video. This is all the stuff that we got in San Diego. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. And thank you so much for watching.